Gideon had refused a crown. When the people of Israel offered it to him, he told them plainly, "The Lord shall rule over you." But his son, Abimelech, born to a concubine from Shechem, walked into his mother's city and asked for the exact power his father had turned down. He did not offer a vision for the city. He did not promise justice, wealth, or peace. His argument bypassed civic good entirely and relied on blood. "Better one man rule you than 70, he told them, reminding them that he was their own bone and flesh. The lords of Shechem were persuaded by a single thought: he is our brother. To back his claim, the city leaders went into the treasury of their idol's temple, Baal-berith. They pulled out exactly 70 pieces of silver and handed them to Abimelech. The 19th century scholar known as the Malbim notes the precise weight of this transaction. By using money pulled directly from their idol's treasury to fund his campaign, the men of Shechem made themselves active, knowing partners in the bloodshed that would follow. That silver was immediately converted into a physical threat. Abimelech used the temple funds to hire a loose, irregular band of empty and reckless men to serve as his personal militia. With his hired band behind him, Abimelech marched out of Shechem and traveled to his father's house at Ophrah. The Book of Judges records the resulting massacre with spare, brutal efficiency. And he came to his father's house at Ophrah and killed his brothers, the sons of Jerubbaal, 70 men, upon one stone. 70 lives extinguished on a single flat fieldstone by their own brother. The physical reality of the crime was cold, deliberate, and entirely contained on that one piece of rock. But Abimelech's victory was not absolute. One son survived. Yotam, the youngest, managed to hide while his brothers were executed. The horrific asymmetry of Ophrah, 70 men murdered upon one stone, creates a profound moral debt. It is a mathematical imbalance that sets the terms for the entire narrative to follow. On the day the men of Shechem gathered beside the great oak to crown Abimelech, the survivor reappeared. Yotam climbed to the rocky summit of Mount Gerizim, looking down at the city in the valley, and lifted his voice. He shouted a parable down to the crowd. He told them of a time when the trees of the forest went out to seek a king. First, they approached the olive tree, but the olive refused. The Malbim explains that the olive represents the oil that gives light, the man of wisdom. Such a man will not abandon his richness, by which God and men are honored, merely to sway over the trees. Next, they turned to the fig, but he also declined. The fig's natural sweetness represents the man of wealth, someone who has accumulated substance and will not leave it for the burden of kingship. They asked the vine, whose wine gladdens God and men. Representing the man of sound judgment, he refused as well. A clear pattern emerges in Yotam's story. Every tree with genuine fruit, every man with actual substance and value, has a higher purpose to fulfill than the mere exercise of power over others. Then the verse shifts a single word. It is no longer just the trees looking for a leader, but all the trees. The worthy candidates have stopped looking. The barren, unfruitful crowd is left to scrape the stony ground, turning to the lowest plant of all, the dry bramble. The bramble accepted the crown, offering a fatal choice. If in truth you anoint me king over you, come, take shelter in my shadow, and if not, let fire come out of the bramble and consume the cedars of Lebanon. The Malbim points out the grim absurdity of this offer. A bramble has no foliage, it casts no shadow, and offers no shelter at all. It possesses exactly one power, the power of dry thorn to catch fire, and to spread that destruction to trees far greater than itself. Yotam then dropped the metaphor. He shouted the reality of their crime to their faces, 70 men on one stone, and vanished into the dry hills. The lords of Shechem had made their choice. By elevating a man who offered nothing but thorns, they had planted the exact seeds of their own inevitable destruction. Abimelech held Israel for 3 years. The Malbim notes a deliberate choice of words in the text. It does not say he judged them, he merely held sway. It was a physical grip, void of actual leadership. Then God sent a spirit of discord between Abimelech and the lords of Shechem. Men were set in ambush on the hilltops, travelers were robbed, and at the wine harvest, a man named Gaal openly cursed Abimelech over the new wine. Abimelech's retaliation was absolute. He drove Gaal out, then took Shechem itself by force. He killed its people, tore the city down to its foundations, and sowed the earth with salt. The remaining lords of Shechem made a fatal, divinely influenced tactical error. They abandoned a stone stronghold that could not have been taken and crowded together inside the timber hall of El-Berith. Abimelech cut a bough on Mount Salmon, ordered his men to do the same, and piled the branches against the wooden hall. They set them alight, and roughly 1,000 people died in the smoke. Yotam's curse had materialized exactly as he spoke it. The metaphorical fire of the bramble had literally consumed the lords of Shechem. But the curse had a second half. Abimelech marched his men to the town of Thebez. As he arrived, the townspeople fled to the roof of their strong tower. Expecting to repeat his exact tactic from Shechem, Abimelech fought his way to the tower door, intending to burn it down. As he stood below, the verse states, "And a certain woman threw an upper millstone upon Abimelech's head, and crushed his skull." The Malbim weighs this final act of justice, measure for measure. The murder of 70 men upon a single stone was answered by a single piece of stone returning upon his own head. Dying on the ground, Abimelech forced his young armor-bearer to run him through with a sword. He was terrified that history would record a woman had killed him. The boy obeyed, but by doing so, ironically, ensured the text preserved his exact fear forever. When the men of Israel saw Abimelech was dead, they dispersed. No foreign oppressor had invaded. The thorn had grown entirely in Israel's own soil, nurtured by an unholy partnership. And when the evil finally burned itself out through perfect divine symmetry, the land was quiet again.